the pre-meeting meeting. Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. We are just in the proclamation portion of our meeting. It's not our regular official meeting. Arugula. So this is just, we're going to do our proclamations prior to our 6 o'clock start. So I'm not doing an official call to order yet. First on the docket, I'm going to take my mask off. A proclamation declaring the September 3rd, 2021, that September 3rd, 2021, as Supportive Service Members and Military Families Day. And is anybody here to speak on that, or?
Could we possibly switch that around and do that one last? I thought there was someone coming.
I can't understand you, I'm sorry.
Can we switch it around? I thought there was someone possibly coming for that one.
Yeah, we can, sure.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll move to,
Well, we got it, whereas, if you wanted.
a proclamation declare, you know what, this is the good one to move to. A proclamation declaring that henceforth the last week of September as Creek Week. And I do know we have someone here with us today. And when I said her last name last time, I screwed it up. So I'm gonna, where can she go? Because I don't,
Right over there, they got it set up.
okay, go ahead. And tell us about Creek Week again. We're excited.
Now it's on. Hello.
Now it's on.
Ooh. Good evening, everybody. My name is Allie Shook, and I'm the Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control and Greenway District's Watershed Outreach Coordinator. And the Fountain Creek Watershed District's work protects the people and property of the region through flood control, development of trails and recreation spaces, protecting wetlands, maintaining clean water, and engaging the community in events such as Creek Week. Creek Week is now Colorado's largest watershed-wide cleanup, and over the past 7 years, we've removed well over 100 tons of litter. This 9-day event is easy, it's fun, it's gratifying because you can see those results instantly, and it truly does bring together our home watershed. Creek Week has spurred additional volunteer projects throughout the year, and we're truly developing watershed warriors working for a cleaner and safer community. Much of the work these volunteers do happens in our parks and trails, and our volunteers know the value of these great assets that we have. We are very grateful for our partners here with the City of Fountain. I want to recognize Councilwoman Estes for serving on our Watershed District Board, and also recognize David Woolley, who's in the IT department, and he is a whiz with helping out with our mapping. We appreciate everything that everyone does. This is truly a collaborative effort, and so with that, I'd like to invite everyone to pick a date, pick a location, and pick it up beginning September 25th. You can register on the Watershed District website or just Google Creek Week, and you're sure to find it. We currently have over 40 public events to choose from over that 9-day time frame. So 9 days, no excuses. Again, thank you for your time this evening, and hope to see you all out there on the trails.
All right, yeah, and I remember the very first one, and we had a bunch of people kind of take some spots across the creek and the watershed, and then it's only, from what I could tell, has grown quite tremendously. And schools, organizations, just kind of different folks, and then now we have the Brewshed Alliance, which I think is really cool to kind of go along with it, and our local brewery that I know is a part of this. You know, they understand the value of our water and what we have, and actually is really good for their brewing and fountain water, and it didn't used to be like that, but I'm glad that it all works out for everybody. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation into the record. A proclamation declaring that henceforth the last week of September as Creek Week. Whereas the City of Fountain is fortunate to have extensive and diverse natural resources such as forests, grasslands, riparian areas, lakes, creeks, and a wide variety of open spaces, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed, unique and is important resource and asset to the residents and visitors of Fountain and the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the Fountain Creek Watershed Flood Control and Greenway District is partnering with the City of Colorado Springs Utilities, El Paso County, Pueblo County, the cities of Manitou Springs, Fountain, and towns of Monument and Green Mountain Falls, along with numerous community organizations, to coordinate the 7th annual Creek Week cleanup, which will encourage the protection, restoration, and maintenance of the Fountain Creek watershed. And whereas a 9-day litter cleanup efforts kick off in Fountain Creek Regional Park on September 25th and runs through October 3rd, 2021, through the watershed. And whereas Creek Week programs and activities are designed to raise awareness about their littering issue within our watershed to encourage organizations and individuals to collect litter and debris to make Fountain Creek and the watershed cleaner and safer. And whereas businesses, churches, schools, nonprofits, neighborhood associations, youth groups, service clubs, and individuals are encouraged to form a creek crew to clean up at Creek Week project site. And whereas Creek Week litter removal activities will reduce pollution in our creeks and clogs in our waterways that can lead to flooding, provide for a safer drinking water supply, enhance wildlife habitat and property values. Now therefore, the council members of the city of Fountain, Colorado hereby proclaim the last week of September as a Creek Week in the city of Fountain, encourage our citizens to help protect, restore, and maintain our waterways by participating in Creek Week activities done this 14th day of September 2021 in Fountain, Colorado. We're not in our regular meeting, so I will go ahead and sign that. We won't make a motion on that, but we are excited about this, and thank you for kind of carrying that charge, and I think having someone like you keeping that group going in this way has been a really good thing, so we appreciate everything. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, and the event does kick off at the Fountain Creek Nature Center Saturday the 25th, so that would be a great one that's nearby here.
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. All right. Our next one is a proclamation henceforth declaring the first Monday of October as World Habitat Day. Oh, come on up. I didn't see you sitting there.
I hide in the back, kind of like going to church. You run for the back pew, right?
Hey,
You don't want to be seen.
I'm there with you.
So I'm Chris. This is Laura from Pikes Peak Habitat for Humanity. We are in our 35th year of serving El Paso County. We will be closing on our 194th home right here off of Race in Illinois at the end of this month. Please come to the dedication of that. That is Wednesday, September 22nd at 9 a.m. All are welcome to come see that. Of the 190, well, soon to be 194 families that we have served, over 100 of those families were made possible by our Restore. That's right there on Wasatch. So because we were able to serve that many families with one Restore, we have now just opened a second Restore. It's clear up off of Tut and Dublin, a little bit of a hike from here, but we're hoping that that will help us serve more families. Now, when you go by Ortega, we're right across the street, you'll see that there are 2 lots that will be done. There's a 3rd lot that's going to be vacant for a little bit. And then just down Race Street, we have another 5 lots that we'll be building on. Because of COVID, the impact on building our homes, we're gonna slow down from doing 8 to 11 a year to doing 5 right now. And we're behind on one of the developments. So you'll see us moving up to Colorado Springs for a little while. We will be back. But our cost of our houses have gone from about $160,000 to $240,000. Those are our costs because of lumber, concrete, and all the other things that are happening. So you'll see us slow down a little bit, but we're still here. We are also continuing to look for veterans and primarily low-income seniors who own their home, they're living in their home, and are in need of repairs. And we do external repairs on those. So we have a lot going on, and we're here.
All right, yeah, and just watching the progress on all these homes around here, because I'll take these roads to avoid the traffic. And so there's some, they look really nice, and excited for the families that get to move in and have those homes to, keep them moving forward as a family is, I know, valuable. I was out on the northern part over by north of Aga Park a couple years ago and for one of the openings, and just watching the kids, and they get the rooms and everything in there. It's just, I've always liked what Habitat does for a community, and you guys have really invested a lot of time and effort here in Fountain, and I appreciate that, as well as the rest of the council. So thank you for, seeing that value here in our little community. So
We'll keep building here.
yeah,
It
we're
might slow
excited.
down, but we're here.
Great. All right, so I'll go ahead and read this one into the. Can I say we're reading into the record even though we're not in an official meeting? Proclamation henceforth declaring the first Monday of October as World Habitat Day. Whereas World Habitat Day was established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1985 to be the first Monday in October to recognize the concerns and conditions of adequate shelter for all humans and to encourage grassroots action toward improving housing conditions worldwide. And whereas during World Habitat Day, Habitat for Humanity draws attention to the important role decent housing plays in removing barriers to opportunity, success, and health that might have been part of a family's life for years, if not generations. And whereas through the Cost of Home campaign, Habitat commits to mobilizing our partners, volunteers, and community members across the U.S. to find us solutions and help create the policies that will improve home affordability for 10 million individuals. And whereas the significant economic impacts of COVID-19 continue to unfold, the number of families struggling to make ends meet is only growing, and even more families are denied the personal and economic stability that safe, decent, and affordable housing provides. And whereas Pikes Peak Habitat for Humanity has assisted 193 families achieve home ownership and maintain permanent affordable housing in El Paso County, and whereas the purpose of this proclamation is to raise awareness and to educate and mobilize individuals and communities to take action on the current local and global housing challenge. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the City of Fountain hereby proclaims the first Monday of October as World Habitat Day, done this 14th day of September 2021, and I will sign that and it will get attested. So thank you for, again, for everything that you do.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, we have two more. A proclamation declaring that henceforth the month of October will be recognized as Arts Month.
Mayor Ortega, Andy Vick did let me know that he wanted to see if we could watch this video for his presentation since he's not able to be here tonight.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it since he won't be here.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with you virtually today. My name is Andy Vick, and I'm the Executive Director of the Cultural Office of Pikes Peak. The Cultural Office is the nonprofit local arts agency that supports and advocates for the creative sector here in our community. Although our office is based in downtown Colorado Springs, our service area extends across all of El Paso and Teller counties, and many of our programs directly engage visitors and cultural tourists as well as area residents. Over the course of the year, the Cultural Office manages a diverse portfolio of programming like Peak Radar, Culture, and Military Arts Connection. However, our largest programming initiative each fall is Annual Arts Month campaign, which takes place during the month of October. By design, our local Arts Month coincides with National Arts and Humanities Month, which was established in 1993 and is observed every October throughout the United States. Orchestrated annually by the Cultural Office, our local Arts Month campaign elevates the visibility of arts and culture across El Paso and Teller counties by showcasing local talent, providing opportunities for arts advocacy, supporting cross-sector community collaborations, and creating new avenues for arts engagement and cultural enrichment. Despite the lingering challenges of COVID-19, our 8th annual Arts Month celebration promises to be one of the biggest and best ever, with lots of new and exciting ways for community members and tourists to embrace a call to action, which is to have one new cultural experience with family or friends in October. To help connect residents and visitors with Arts Month, the Cultural Office has created artsoctober.com. This dynamic website is everyone's virtual portal to a rich array of Arts Month programming and special opportunities, including a series of creative campfires with local artists, an assortment of contest giveaways, including a chance to paint with an elephant at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, a featured Artist of the Day profile throughout the month of October, free online cooking classes, and a wide range of inspiring cultural activities and events produced by local artists and arts organizations from across our region. With the many economic, public health, and social challenges facing our nation and region, it's easy to understand how the arts may not be top of mind right now. However, the creative sector has been among the hardest hit by COVID-19 over the past year and a half, with performance venues closed, festivals and public events canceled, galleries going out of business, and gig workers without their next gig. Of course, local artists never stop creating, but it's still anything but business as usual. According to data compiled by Arts for the Arts, almost 60,000 Colorado artists and creative workers have lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19. And creative industry businesses across the state have suffered an estimated $2.4 billion in lost revenue over the last year as a result of the pandemic. Locally, the nonprofit arts and cultural sector's $153.3 million economic impact is not being fully realized as we continue to navigate the reopening of our venues and work to resume normal operations and programming in the wake of the pandemic. All of these challenges make our 8th Annual Arts Month celebration more important than ever this October. Not only to support the recovery of our local creative sector, but also to take advantage of an important opportunity to bring our community together around the arts, and to help showcase and celebrate the talent and creativity that makes the Pikes Peak region such a vibrant and desirable place to live. But beyond just Arts Month, as you work to finance and facilitate our collective recovery from the pandemic, please remember that the creative sector will need your continued support and investment. Not only for organizations like this, but for the thousands of creative businesses, nonprofits, and independent artists and performers who contribute significantly to the local economy, attract cultural tourists, and enhance our quality of life across the Pikes Peak region. I'd also like to take this opportunity to announce the upcoming release of Arts Vision 2030, our new 10-year cultural plan for the Pikes Peak region. In partnership with the Beav Ravenberg Foundation, the Cultural Office has been working closely with a team of experienced consultants and a diverse local steering committee to evaluate our past accomplishments as a sector, to gather community input and ideas for the future, and to craft the goals and strategies that will guide us forward over the next decade. As part of this year's Arts Month celebration, I'd like to invite you all to attend the official release of the Arts Vision 2030 on Wednesday, October 27th at 5 p.m. at the Gold Room in downtown Colorado Springs. Thank you for your time and for demonstrating your support of Arts Month 2021 with a formal proclamation. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person to express my appreciation, but I look forward to sharing a digital copy of the proclamation on the official month website at artsoctober.com.
He does come, but this event has gotten bigger and bigger every year, so, which is good. Kimberly, were you going to say anything, or? Okay, and I know we have our Artists of the Week that will be coming soon as well, out here, is that correct? Is that still occurring?
That is correct. So October 13th, 14th, and 15th, please bring your chair to the lawn and just enjoy some family time with our performers being arranged to entertain you, recognizing artists.
Great, okay. All right, we have 10 minutes. I'll go ahead and read through this one, and we will see where we're at for that final proclamation. A proclamation declaring that henceforth the month of October we recognize as Arts Month. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades. And whereas the humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American, including those of us living in the Pikes Peak region, and whereas the arts and humanities play a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country, whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens our national economy by generating $166.3 billion in total economic activity annually, $153.3 million in economic impact locally, and by supporting a full-time equivalent of 4.6 million jobs, 5,070 jobs locally. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the City of Council of the City of Fountain, do hereby proclaim October as Arts Month in Colorado's Pikes Peak region, and call upon our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in Fountain, Colorado, and to specifically encourage a greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in their community, done this 14th day of September 2021 in Fountain, Colorado. All right, thank you. And then our last proclamation, a proclamation declaring that September 3rd, 2021 is Support of Service Members and Military Families Day.
They just came to the regular meeting.
Is this for them?
No, former Representative Kit Rupe, if she's here. Okay, oh, good, we waited on you for your, Kit, Kit, if you could go over to the hot seat over here. We kind of waited on you for the proclamation for Armed Forces Week. Oh, well, the mayor will read it, just if you wanted to say anything about it, you can sit at the table, so.
And I'm sitting where?
Right there for just a minute. Okay.
I have a representative here from the DFW. She could join me.
If
Okay,
you,
did you have anything you wanted to say about the proclamation before I read it in?
Okay, I just thought it was gonna be backwards. My name's Kit Rupay. Is it not on?
It's on. It's
Is
on.
that bad? I'm looking at your clerk over here.
Oh,
Or she's over here. Somebody is here. So my name's Kit Rupay. I live in Colorado Springs, but I am a Vietnam era veteran, family history of veterans. And the reason I brought this up to so many different city councils is because we are recognized as one of the premier places for our veterans and for our active duty members. And I want them to know unequivocally that not just myself, but as a community, we support them, we thank them, and we appreciate their sacrifice. And that is why I asked for the proclamation that Sharon is bringing to us all today, or helped me with this.
okay. All right, yeah, and we, I think all of us feel pretty strongly about that as well, and just knowing that probably a huge percent of us just are here because of the military in some way, shape, or fashion. So I will go ahead and read the proclamation in.
Did you want to have this young lady who's from the VFW speak?
Oh, did you want to say anything, or you?
Actually, I'm sorry, but the president of the VFW 6461 is present. He would be able to speak if that's okay.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, come on up.
Apologize. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you guys for allowing me to speak. I'm the commander of VFW Post 6461. September 3rd is a huge recognized day amongst us. Most VFWs actually celebrate POW MIA on that day. So the date is actually near and dear to our hearts. And we do appreciate all the support, and we are here for the community, and we appreciate the community actually doing what they do to support veterans like ourselves in the community. So thank you.
Great, and I understand, is it Post 6461, it's been getting as part of the KXRM 21, he's donating money, isn't it?
Yes, part of the 3-degree guarantee.
Right.
Yes, we are recipients of that.
Okay, so if you're not, on KXRM 21, Matt Meister, who does it morning weather, he predicts, and if he's within 3 degrees of what actually occurs, they donate, I think, what, $50 or something?
Yeah, $60, $30 coming from one organization that's a live wire, it's an electrical company, and then $30 coming from them.
Yeah.
So $60 every day.
Yeah, to our local post, so yeah, I'm excited about, the only thing I'm a little upset about is just this heat that he's continuing with, so if you can cool it down a little bit.
Tried to talk to him.
He can predict all the way down to 70s, it's okay, but I am excited about that. I'm sort of like, hey, I know that group, so, all right. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation in. A proclamation declaring that September 3rd, 2021 is Support of Service Members and Military Families Day. Whereas over 1.4 million active duty service members protect the United States on a daily basis, and whereas service members and their families make constant sacrifices to ensure freedom and safety for others, and whereas we honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, most recently 13 service members who were killed in a suicide bombing attack during evacuations at the Kabul airport, and whereas the Pikes Peak region is home to 5 military installations that include the U.S. Air Force Academy, Cheyenne Mountain Space Force Station, Fort Carson Army Post, Peterson Space Force Base, and Schriever Space Force Base. And whereas service members return from Afghanistan and other deployments, the City of Fountain is here and ready to welcome them home and support them. And whereas friends, neighbors, residents, and our community leaders say unequivocally that we are here for service members and military families, we care about you and we honor your sacrifice for us and our nation. We extend a deep and heartfelt thank you for all you do, all you give, and all you have given. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and the city council of the City of Fountain, Colorado recognize September 3rd, 2021 as supportive service members and military families day, done this 14th day of September 2021. All right, and with that, we will get that signed as well and attested by the city clerk and off to the people who need them. So thank you for bringing that forward to us.
Thank you, and I'd also just like to bring attention to Commissioner Lejinas Gonzalez, who joins us today as a member of the post, but also as a veteran in our community, and he also wanted to say a few words, I think, maybe.
Quickly, I think we know him from somewhere. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I was a little late. My sister's in from California, so trying to do some family time. But always appreciate the great work of all our veterans. And you have a great local chapters of VFW and American Legion, several down here in the southern portion of the Fountain Valley. And I appreciate all the great work that they do. And please reach out to me for any time you need me as a resource. Some people do know, some people don't know. I'm also on the State Board of Veteran Affairs. So for people that need any, have any questions, please feel free to use our local posts as your first line of resource, but also the Veteran Services Office from El Paso County, and then me. So I'm always here for our veterans, and thank you for all the great things you do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, thank you, Ms. Rupe.
Thank you. It's my
All right.
pleasure.
Okay, with that, we've got about 30 seconds probably before we move into our regular meeting. Are we ready about, as recording goes, and okay, and we'll start promptly at 6, and again, this will be the start of our regular meeting. No problem. You know what, let's just go ahead and get started. So, oh,
Did you do that?
I like this thing. Okay, now we are calling to order our regular city council meeting for September 14th, 2021. It is 6 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ortega.
Here.
Councilmember Thompson.
Here.
Councilmember Estes.
Here.
Councilmember Applegate.
Here.
Councilmember Geek.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
All 6 members present.
Okay, great. So tonight's a little bit different. We are going to be doing our budget work session tonight during our meeting. That's why this mess is up here in front. And so once we transition to that part, we'll take about a 2-minute break and work our way down there for that. Let's see, we just did roll call presentations. We have none tonight. Board Commission Committee appointment. We need to appoint 3 members to the Personnel Grievance Board. Who's taking that one?
I'll go ahead and take it.
Go ahead.
Mayor and council, we do have a personnel grievance board that convenes just as needed. We currently have 3 positions available on the board, and they are term limited. We did receive 3 applications from Ms. Shirley Martinez, Jennifer Hirschberg, and Brian Johnson for appointment tonight to that board.
Okay, and I think we know all of those folks. And I'm not seeing any others, so are there any questions? I don't see any of them here.
We need a recommendation instead of a proposed motion.
I think you can just propose as recommended by staff for a reading or motion. Oh, I didn't see that. Ms. Duncan,
Yeah, I was just going to propose a recommendation.
go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to
Move to approve.
move to approve the recommendation to approve the appointment of Ms. Jennifer Harrisburg, Ms. Shirley Martinez, and Mr. Brian Johnson to the Personnel Grievance Board.
All right, and Ms. Estes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for appointment.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right. Item number 5 is a city council agenda request announcements. I'll start with Ms. Duncan. No, it's not. There it is.
Okay, we moved around some. So good afternoon to everyone, good evening. I've had a busy week. I attended the Fall Festival, which was an outstanding event for our community. We even have our Grand Marshal here, so glad to see you here tonight. I am a member of the Fountain Chamber of Commerce. We had a great time. We had, I don't know how many people there was in attendance to that event, but it was wonderful to see all the faces of our community. We had visitors from Fountain Wide Field, what we call Fountain Valley. So it was really wonderful to see everyone there. I also attended our events that we had at our fire department, and I told the chief that we can do this every weekend, and I just show up and eat. So thank you so much for all those good events that we had, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Geek?
I have a couple things tonight. One being I want to make sure everybody understands that lives in Fountain, that the roundabout that's going to be put in at Fortman and Fountain Mesa is not provided by the city of Fountain. Does everybody understand that? I've got a number of people that are concerned about it, and they don't want to be paying for that. They don't want it up there, so just so you know that, Commissioner, I'm sure you're hearing a few of these.
He's giving us his personal cell phone.
And then I had a memo from the Health Department yesterday in regards to the President's plan to the mandates for the shots. And my concern is, with our government contracts that we have, John, is that gonna affect the city of Fountains? Because I know we're not currently mandated to have.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councilmember Geek. So last week I spoke with Colonel Springer, the garrison commander of Fort Carson, and conveyed that concern as well. And he told me as of right now that the president's restrictions and things that he intends to do would not have an impact on our intergovernmental support agreements at this time. So that could change, of course, as the chain of command puts guidance down to the different garrisons, but at this time, there is no impact. I would say that the one IGSA that we have ongoing right now, pest control, I've spoken with our provider there, and the vaccination requirements is not a problem for that particular IGSA. So and at this moment, we're in pretty good shape, and I'll keep council and everyone informed if that changes.
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Applegate?
Thank you.
As Mr. Duncan said, that we had the parade, and it was incredible. The people that were at the corner here of Ohio and 85, I've never seen anything like that in this town before. It looked like the Rose Bowl parade. It was just a mob, but it was terrific. It was really great. And the thing at the firehouse was really fun too. I like that, and that's all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Estes?
Just to have that, I attended the part of the tour for the the tour that they do for the Fountain Creek Watershed, and that's a wonderful tour if you ever are able to participate in that. Usually happens in September, and it's just a great time to go out and see all the projects that the district is doing to help along from the start of Fountain Creek all the way down to the confluence in Pueblo. So it's a great time to see wonderful projects that are happening, and one of the big ones that impacted our community, thanks with El Paso County, was the Hanson Trailhead. And we got that bridge replaced out there, and that trail is open and is wonderful. They did a lot of work out there, and it's gonna be a great resource, a wonderful place to go out there and bird watch and just take some nice walks in our community. So I encourage everybody to do that. And a big shout out to Patty. Thanks for being our Grand Marshal for the parade. That was a great honor. Thank you. That's all.
All right, Ms. Thompson?
Yeah, the Labor Day was great. Thanks to all the volunteers who worked so hard on that. Months and months of planning, and then getting out there that day and staying in the heat and everything just to make it work. And the police department and everybody in the fire department for all that extra work, so thank you. I did have a chance with former Representative Lois Landgraf to attend the Veteran of the Year awards ceremony through the county. Chief Huber was there also. Fantastic event. They choose 4 people who are working within the veteran community, and they have to be a veteran. I am so glad I had no part of that committee to make that choice. What they read, the resumes of every single person at that was nominated for that is just incredible. I really don't know how they pick, short of putting a name in a hat, but it's very difficult, very talented and dedicated people. And so Skylar Nelson was the winner of that. And congratulations to her as she continues to work in our community as a veteran. She has an amazing story of what she's done and things she's accomplished, And congratulations to her, and her picture's out there all over the place. And then I really appreciated the 9/11 cookout that Public Safety put on, kind of planning it at the last minute. I think that's a great event that can hopefully grow within the community, and especially next year with 9/11 being on, I believe, Sunday next year. And I think it was very much appreciated by the community, and especially this year in a really, really tough time where people are struggling with a lot of things. It was good to have another event that we could use to celebrate something positive going on in the community. And it was great to have the different nonprofits there that are providing services and counseling and different things. So thank you very much to everybody who helped work on that.
All right, thank you. On the 9/11, I just in reflection of that, and everyone here remembers that day pretty vividly, I assume. And I talked to my kids and my students about where I was that morning. I was actually at the gym and heading to go teach that day. And I remember there's a big screen TV, those old TVs with the thing in the back, and it wasn't really great TV, but everyone bought one. And yeah, projector TV. And as I'm walking out, and I notice a building in New York City, being a Colorado boy, never been there, didn't really know anything, was on fire, and it said plane, into the World Trade Center. Didn't really think much of it, because New York, things happen all the time. And so just kind of thought that was weird and unfortunate, obviously. In the 5 minutes it took me to get from the gym to my school, that's when everything changed. And I remember the rest of that day. And the students that I taught, they really have no idea what was going on. And I'm working with, the students with autism who, nonverbal, and just, we were doing some pretty intense work with them as we always did. And their day was normal, but trying to keep that day as normal for them as possible, knowing all this was going on. And that was kind of the beginnings of the internet, when everybody was on and trying to make phone calls on our cell phones, and just how things have changed since then, and what we do today, and how we get information, and watching all that, and thinking all those years ago, man, I wish I can get out there and help and do something. And it was difficult watching all that, and going to church that week, and just everyone, the way we all felt about what happened to our country, and to think now, 20 years later, here we are, and we've got a whole nother set of problems and things that we're dealing with, but that is still very vivid. At the school I teach at now, if you happen to see on PBS over the last week, they did a story on 9/11 babies, what they called them, and these are all kids that lost a parent on 9/11. Most of them weren't even born. Mom was ready to have them, and dads were, killed in those accidents. And one of the students from the school I teach at was one of them, and his dad was at the Pentagon that day, and he lost his dad, so never got to know him. But it was interesting to see that perspective in the world that they've grown up in, and they hear about all this and how much it's affected them, and just to think about, their lives and how they view things as well, because they kind of asked about, all their opinions of what's going on in the world from the time they were born to today, and just the how they've gone through life without those people. And so it's even close to home. So just want to, again, reflection on that, and thank you the public safety for honoring those. And I know we had a group of firemen that went, and was it to Denver, that hiked the tower up, and I think we also had a group that did the incline that day, in just honor of those that were trucking up the World Trade Center tower. So rough stuff, weird stuff that we had to live through that, but you know what? We powered through, and we'll continue doing that even through all the mess that we have today. But I still tell everybody that we may not be the greatest country, but we're the best thing going. So as far as I'm concerned. So with that, thanks to everybody for all your hard work on all that, and especially to the veterans that whether you're public safety, military, the world changed since then, and you guys have risen to the challenge to keep us safe, and I appreciate every bit of that. So I have no other announcements tonight. I don't think we're still moving forward. And the next two meetings, is this correct? We'll be doing more of our water plan? Yep. Okay, yeah, those are coming up, the next two meetings. So if you're interested in that, please be sure to attend our next two council meetings as well, because they've got more information to provide. At our next meeting, I think we'll be voting in October on the actual plan. Is Am I okay on the process? Okay, great. All right. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move, because I know we want to get to the budget, since that's so exciting. And we'll go from there. So public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on our agenda. We ask that council may not be able to provide a immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. And out of respect for the council and others in attendance, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I got one card tonight from, well, it says Max, I think, Kronstadt. Did I say that right? I'm sorry. Yeah. All right, come on up.
Hey everyone, so my name is Max Kronstadt. I work with the Colorado Trust here in Fountain, which is a foundation focused on bringing residents together to push for the changes that we want to see here. And so I'm here today to tell you all about an upcoming meeting that we're hosting to talk about food access in our community. This is something that in conversations I've had over the last few months, and that people before me have had over the last few years, comes up time and time again as a challenge, particularly for the downtown Fountain area. So the meeting is going to be on Thursday, September 23rd, so a week from this Thursday, from 6 to 7:30 at the gazebo at Metcalf Park. And we'll have food for people who come. And there'll also be a virtual meeting for those who would prefer to participate virtually the night before from 6 to 7:30, so that's the 22nd. And so at the meeting, we'll talk about the results of a survey that we've been doing in the community about food access, just trying to get a little bit more of a handle on the issue and where people are getting their food and what other options they think the community needs. So if it's okay, I'll come pass out. Can I give some flyers to council and staff in the audience? All right.
And is there an RSVP or anything for this, or?
There is not, no.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, that's all I had.
Okay,
Thank you all.
and if anyone wants to take the survey, they can use the QR code or
Exactly.
enter in the website.
Yeah, and that would be great if people could take it before the 21st. That way we have some time to look at the data before the meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right. And again, that's September 23rd from 6 to 7:30, the gazebo at Metcalf. If you can't join them, they'll have a Zoom link on the survey page, so if you get onto that survey page, there's a link there to join via Zoom. So thanks for that. Okay. I have no more cards. Okay, we're going to go ahead and keep moving forward. We have our item number 7, is our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen requests, in which case the item may be removed from consent and considered separately at discretion of council. We have items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to ask if the council would remove item 7B. The item that was put on there, we were working on trying to put a number of items on the consent agenda because we knew we had this budget workshop coming up. And so, but that one is a dollar amount that's above the $250 for the council. So I just want to pull that back and put it in the regular agenda, if
Okay,
possible.
any others? Okay, seeing none, the request is for 7B to be pulled. Ms. Thompson?
Two things. In the future, can we consider raising that item amount on the consent agenda? I think $250,000 was set quite a time ago. With the cost of things, I would like to open a conversation to maybe increasing that dollar amount. We know construction costs have gone up considerably just in the last year. Okay, I know we can't do that tonight, but I just think it might make life a little easier.
Yeah, I think so. How do we do that? Would we bring that back just as an item and a recommendation of a number amount?
So yeah, if the council desires to do that, just give us direction, then we'll put an item on the agenda for discussion, then we can have a conversation, and you can give us some direction.
I think it's a worthy cause, and,
Okay.
she brings up a good point with, if it helps makes things easier,
Okay.
yeah,
I think we picked that number 6 or 7 years ago.
it's been a while, yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so it's time to up the game, right?
I think it's
And,
okay.
and with that statement, I would like to, unless anybody else wants to pull anything off, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda, taking off item B as amended.
All right, we have a motion for items A through H without B, and Ms. Duncan?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right. Item 8, old business. 8A, second reading of ordinance number 1766, an ordinance granting Black Hills, Colorado Gas, Inc., DBA Black Hills Energy, its lessees, successors, and assigns a natural gas franchise and the authority to construct, operate, maintain, and extend a natural gas distribution plant and system, and granting the right to use the streets, alleys, and other public places within the present of our future corporate limits of the city of Fountain, Colorado. Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. This is a second reading. We discussed it last meeting, but it's basically just a granting a continuation of the Black Hills gas franchise in the city of Fountain. And so if there are any further questions, happy to answer those, or any questions from the public too.
Okay, any questions? Ms. Thompson
Move to approve?
and Ms. Estes?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All righty.
Thank you.
On to item 9, new business, the one item that was removed from our consent agenda, which is resolution number 21-041, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Fountain awarding the contract for the Main Street and Ohio Avenue Public Improvement Intersection Project to Concrete Experts LLC. It says Ms. Bailey, but are you going to take this?
I'll handle that real quickly, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate that. Appreciate you moving that off. I apologize. That was my fault that got put on there. I was focused on the agenda item and totally missed the amount. But that amount has been, or that project has been bid out. The amount is for 338 with Concrete Experts LLC, $338,983.20. That's specifically to improve the intersection at Ohio and Main, to improve the ADA accessibility there and to provide additional ADA access along the north side of Main Street as you're up against 101 North Main, and improvements along the east side as well. I think the council's aware of the project, but I just wanted to, that's what that resolution's for.
Okay. Any questions from anybody on this?
Just exciting to see it coming to fruition. These have been plans that have been in the works for a really long time, and a lot of people volunteering and working on this, so it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, I remember when it first came up. Okay. Seeing no questions, Ms. Duncan
I move to approve.
and Ms. Estes. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of resolution number 21-041. Please vote.
6 yes, motion carried.
All right. Great. We are on to, oh, no, we're not. Item 9B, I'm opening a public hearing to consider the request for a retail fermented malt beverage liquor license application for Maverick Inc., located at 6180 Timber Rail Point. Ms. Huffman.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Maverick has applied for their liquor license in their new area located off of Syracuse and Mesa Ridge Parkway. They have met all requirements of this application, and council should have received the information on the survey 10 days prior to today's meeting. And since it is a public hearing, I do believe that there are 2 representatives here from not only just the survey group, but from Maverick. So if they're available.
Okay, go ahead and take a seat. And
I am here by myself. No one actually did come with me.
that's okay. Okay, go ahead.
There is no additional information from the clerk's office other than recommendation of approval of this license.
Okay.
So just if you have any questions for the applicant.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
I have a little concern about how many people were actually, only 4 approved or said it was okay. You didn't have any that didn't want it?
No, it was 100% for in favor for yes. It was only the 4 that were contacted.
And it's based on a radius of,
A quarter mile.
Got that.
yeah.
But I'm a little concerned about that school being right across the street.
So we've gone and actually done a little bit extra because of the location of the actual store. So what we're going to be doing is when a delivery comes, we're going to have someone designated to watch the delivery. Make sure that nobody grabs any product that, you know, we haven't designated to sell, or things like that. We have a class. It's called TAM. It's called Techniques of Alcohol Management. Every single employee is going to be required to take this class. It's going to tell them when they need to ID someone. It's going to tell them just how to sell alcohol properly. There are also prompts on our screens that make sure that we're IDing properly. And then when we're also, we're going to be obviously restricting the sale of alcohol. Midnight to 8 a.m. there will be no sales. The doors will be locked. You will not even be able to access the alcohol in between those hours. So there have been, you know, a few things that we've done to ensure that it's really only being sold properly.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, she has to get on the mic.
Awesome. You got it.
Sorry.
Jean Smith, Widefield resident, impacted by the convenience store. First of all, I'm sure you have measured the distance between the convenience store and Mesa Ridge High School property. I didn't hear that there is a limit or an amount of footage that those have to be separated. Was that answer given?
No, but the answer to your question is 500 feet.
500 feet, so they are
They are 500
further
feet.
away than
Yes.
500 feet.
Yes.
When you're talking about malted liquor, are you talking about just beer or other spirits?
No, just beer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And unless there's further discussion from council, what motion would we like to make? Mr. Applegate?
I move to approve the retail firmament malt beverage liquor license application for Maverick Incorporated located at 6180 Timber Rail Point.
Okay, and Ms. Duncan?
I second.
All right, we have a motion and second for approval of the permit. Please vote.
5 yes, 1 no. Councilmember Geek voting no. Motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If I can, real quick, I want to skip over item 9C and just do correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports, since I don't want to have to bring everybody back up here. Can we do that real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Mr. Trainer. Anything for that item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything.
Okay, Mr. Evans? Troy? Okay, Chief?
No, I just agree that the community looked great. It was good to have the parade back and appreciate everyone's support. Many people are here for the 9/11 celebration, and comments have already been said, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blankenship? I'm not going to you, Mr. Lewis, because we're going to hear enough from you tonight. Anything from utility, or your side of utilities there, Mr. Christian? Nope, you're good. Okay, IT? We're good? Oh, there you are. I didn't even see you back there. Hi. Okay, Mr. Trilch, anything tonight?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Nope. And Ms. Huffman?
Just a quick announcement that we're going to hold our ribbon cutting grand opening for the new pump track at MacLeod Park this Friday at 5 p.m. So please join us.
Nice. Okay, I drove by there the other day. I didn't even realize he had started working on it, and it looked awesome. My kid's eyes were that big because he's really ready to go hit it. So
Turned out
it
really
is
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome. So, okay, council, anything further? I'll start with Ms. Duncan.
Just want to remind everyone about our youth council, and Max, who just presented to us, will be our guest speaker at our first meeting. We will be talking about our community meeting about the food access in Fountain, and also we will be talking about a youth photo voice project. And this project is where people use photo images to capture aspects of their community and experiences. And what we talked about today was that the kids will bring in photos about what they like about their community, 5 pictures of what makes their community great, 5 pictures they would like to change about their community, and 5 pictures that they don't like about the community. And then we will come back together and discuss what all that means. So I thank you, Max, for being our guest speaker. It will be on September the 26th at 2021 at 2 p.m., and that's our youth council.
All right, thank you. Mr. Geek, anything further?
Nothing for me tonight.
Mr. Applegate?
Nothing for me tonight.
Ms. Estes?
Nothing further?
Ms. Thompson?
Sylvia, I think your new project is one of the top talked about things in this community. Everybody trying to see what it is, figure out what it is. So I'm excited. It's gone so quickly, and your team has worked so hard to get that pulled together. So exciting stuff. Thank you.
All right, and I have nothing further. If you can, though, I think it would be a great help to, I want to say his name, Mr. Kronstadt. Okay, sorry, to go ahead and get that and fill out that survey. It'll help. The more numbers you can get on those surveys, the better, as far as getting that information out. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a 5-minute break to kind of transition into the budget work session. And to keep Mr. Lewis in the hot seat a little bit longer. And then we will reconvene. After that, I will end the session from down there, and then we'll be done for tonight. So our next meeting will be September 28th. All right, in recess. All right, we can get started again. So we are in our second year of our 2-year budget cycle. So this work session shouldn't be as involved as a on year, I guess. I don't know what that's the best way to put it. And I want to remind council, public, that, you know, our strategy is really what drives our decisions in the budget and pushing our monies forward and what we do. And so, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, we had our strategy work session, and really the only ones that showed up were our candidates for council and, of course, our normal council folks and staff. So there's more of those coming, but those really help us to shape our budget and move us forward in how we spend our money in the city. It's not the old days of rabbit holes of, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. We're trying to stay focused and spend responsibly and take care of what we have and move forward from there. We did come up with some ideas for our next priorities that I think John is working on over the next few weeks to kind of polish that up and move from there. So with that, so that just as that reminder that's what is really going to guide a lot of our decisions tonight. We've tried to stay along those lines of our strategy to make sure that everyone's on the same page. We all work together to come up with those last strategic priorities, and we've made some really good progress and gains on those. So with that, Scott, are you the one going from here? So go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did a great job giving a great synopsis of that. So I can skip over all that stuff I was going to say. We did use the strategic plan when the council developed that 2-year budget. So I appreciate the council's focus on that. So as we step into tonight, we will primarily focus on, because the council did do that work which, as we all know, is a real tedious process. It's a big process, takes a lot of work to create that 2-year budget. So tonight, the focus is really on any changes, any modifications, because we know as we project forward, we know none of us have a crystal ball. And so there's a number of things as we move forward from those projections. Some things are really the same, and then there's a few changes as well. So that's really the focus that we're going to have. And so you've all been provided a budget message. That's really kind of an executive summary of the major things that have changed within the budget. We're not going to focus on that tonight unless there's any questions on that, because we will be hitting on those individual issues more specifically as we go through each section, the general fund, water, electric, and so on. So with that, if we could move to section 2 of your budget binder, that's the focus on general fund revenues. Well, that's the general fund section in total. We'll begin the discussion around general fund revenues. So as we projected, as we were projecting the general fund revenues, particularly the sales tax revenues, remember we were in the middle of COVID when we were doing that. We're still in the middle of COVID. It's just hopefully, knock on wood, on a downhill slope somewhat. We didn't really know what to project on sales tax. If you remember, initially we really thought sales taxes were really going to be hurt. Turns out they actually did much better than we anticipated, but we also anticipated COVID being more in our rearview mirror today than it is, and so we projected the sales tax revenues being lower than now that we're projecting them. So you're going to see as we move forward. Let's move to, if you would, to I'm not going to go through unless the council wants. The first few pages of that section are really just an explanation of what each of those revenues are. The real meat is on page 12, and so that's the table, and I'm just going to touch on that at a high level. Excuse me, and then we're going to move through some of the stories specifically to the various changes that go into this. This is a summary table that John's coming to right here. You'll see that up there. And I'm going to go through each of these real briefly. As you can see on here, we're going to focus on the far right column. John, can you scroll over so we can see that? This provides 3 years of data to give us an idea of where those projections come from. But if you can go, now scroll up. So yeah, thank you. You'll see that second to the right column where it says revisions to initial 2022 budget. So when you look at taxes, you'll see that property taxes, we didn't project any changes. Franchise taxes didn't project changes. Specific ownership taxes didn't project changes. there will likely be some property tax changes, as we know, but we're waiting, we still have to wait for information from the county to really be able to tell what that will look like. And by the way, John, just jump in and interject if I miss anything or forget to mention something.
Yeah, we do have forecast an increase in property taxes, and that'll be adjusted slightly once we get the actuals from the county assessor.
Thank you, sir. Sales tax, you can see that we're projecting an additional increase of about 1.4 million. That's fairly significant for our little budget, and so, but that's the trajectory that the sales taxes are taking. You have far more people, and we've talked about this before, shopping online. Even when the stores started reopening, there's a lot more of that happening, and consequently, we receive more. We have less leakage, and we receive more sales taxes directly from that. As you move down, you can see we do also project an increase in the use tax, $55,000 approximately. But due to, just below that, due to what we're projecting as, because of our limitations in water, what we're projecting as a decrease slightly in development fees, you're going to see a decrease there of $175,000. So I'm really just kind of focusing on these change areas. That specifically says charges for service. Those are our development-related fees. As you scroll down, intergovernmental revenue, that's the IGSA revenue largely. And so that revenue that we project receiving from Fort Carson, from the military for our intergovernmental support agreements, excuse me, you're going to see that under that intergovernmental revenue. Incidentally, there are also associated expenditures, and we'll touch on that. That will increase due to that as well. So we'll touch on that when we get to that section. And then there's some there's $8,000 of transfers down towards the bottom. Are there any questions at this point on these revenues? We're seeing a grand total of about 2.5 million in projected increases over what we had initially planned for over a year ago. All right, then if you look at the next page, page 13, that's the section that refers to a little bit more detail on each of those areas. And you'll see similar tables to this that highlight each of the different specific changes. So this is the table on page 13 that's just focused on the revenue piece. So if you wanted a little bit of a written narrative on each of those areas, that's there as well. But that's the same information I just shared with you. So then let's move over to page 15. And by the way, if there's any time you want to pause and ask a question, give me some direction, whatever, please don't hesitate. So now, as we work into the general fund expenditures, we want to focus on this a little bit. Again, this is a summary table, and I'm going to just, probably not to the same degree, focus on this table as much, because I want to focus on the following, what they call stories in this OpenGov document, because then that's where more of the detail is, right? And so this, what I'll just say on this one is it's just the same as you just saw as far as a summary table showing the specific areas where there are increases or decreases under expenditures. You're going to see while we had a total of about 2.5 million in recommended increases to revenues, right now we have a grand total of about 1.6 million in recommended increases on expenditures. There's a number of decreases in there, as you can see, by line item going on that second to the right column, and then there's some increases as well. And rather than try to remember what each of these line items represent, we'll go to the stories, if you would, John, if you want to do that, and then we'll get down to more of the detail of what's behind each of those numbers. Does that work for the council? Okay, so those are beginning on page 16 then. I want to make sure that's the right one. Okay. So if you look at that top table on your page 16, you will see that all departments, here are some of the changes to the budget from what the council initially discussed and approved. You'll see that when the council met the last time, one of the things the council directed staff to do was to come back and try to provide a 3% merit increase within the budget. So that top number represents $560,000. That's an increase of 3% merit increase, and that affects all departments and the corresponding benefit elections that might change with that as well.
Well, and not only the 3%, because the 3% would only be a little under 400,000. It also includes some increased personnel that council decided to have hired in public safety during the year. So We didn't have that in the initial 2022 budget. They were brought in this year, so now their pay is included in the 2022 budget.
Thank you, John. The only other personnel that would include would be moving a part-time administration person in Parks and Rec up to full-time. That's one that right now that's not in there? Temporary, excuse me, I said part-time, temporary to full-time, yeah. That's one that we had funded through temporary funds, and now we're proposing that we turn it into a full-time position. That's something that's a position that's really helped out Sylvia with her work with Parks and Rec. Okay, the second line there, donations. This represents a third, that $6,600 represents a third of a $20,000 amount that we're proposing for a lobbyist. And that would be what we've discussed with the council in the past, partnering up with Monument, hiring a lobbyist to help us stay on top of all the legislative changes that are gonna happen. This last legislative session was a nightmare to really try to stay up on. And so we really want to, and we did go out to bid. We actually went out, did an RFP with a very, very robust RFP with a lot of different services, and found out that the cost for something like that were quite a bit higher than this, but we got back with Monument. We slimmed down our RFP to really just kind of keep us informed. And so that's what we're proposing. So the grand total is $20,000. This represents a third of it. Next line there is office supplies, and that's really for court. You can see a slight increase in office supplies and a slight decrease matching it in the printing. Economic development, you'll see a $517,000 increase from the initial budget. And again, that's because a portion of what happens there is due to our sales tax agreements. And so that's for the FURA sales tax agreement. Yes, ma'am. And by the way, we do have department heads who are here as well, who can help answer any real detailed type of questions about any of the specifics.
I'm just trying to find the on switch. I got it. I think I got it. I went the wrong direction, you know. Anyways, the $6,600 is a third of what the 3 cities are budgeting for a lobbyist.
The $6,600 is a third of what the city of Fountain is budgeting.
Right.
Monuments, they'll be budgeting a whole different amount to add to that for our partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem high enough to me. I know
Okay.
it's unusual for me to say that, but.
Yeah, we had proposed 20,000, so that would be like half of the overall cost potentially. But we haven't gone out to go out to bid on this revised RFP
Right.
either.
I understand. Are we prepared to increase that a little bit if we need to?
Excuse
Are we
to-
prepared to increase that a little bit if we need to?
Yeah, so I think what would happen is if we sent out the RFP, and let's say the RFP came back at 45,000 or 50,000, right? And we needed to be on the hook for half of that. We'd need to come back to the council and say, council, what do you think? Do you want to increase by 5,000 or whatever amount that we needed to?
And is there any way with a lot of the things that are going to be coming up environmentally related, that the cost of that could potentially be split with any of the utilities departments?
This is a split right now.
This
Yeah,
is the split. Oh,
this represents a third.
okay.
of
I
our-
was misunderstanding what you were saying. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
that amount makes way more sense now.
Yeah.
When you were saying a third, that's why I was questioning the way.
Yeah, our grand total is 20,
Thank you.
split 3 ways internally in the city.
Now
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, hopefully I'm not the only one that misunderstood that, but that makes way more sense. I'm comfortable with
Okay.
that number then.
All right, let's see here. As we go into administration, you'll see that we have some decreases in there, a decrease for contract grant writer, replacing that with our IGZA analyst. As we move forward with the intergovernmental support agreements with both Fort Carson and potentially expanding that with the Air Force, we really are getting to a point. Right now, as John's discussed with the council numerous times, with the pest control IGZA, it's a very small one. It was sort of our opportunity to dip our toe in the water and test it out. That's something that we have the capabilities in-house to handle, but as we get to the much larger IGZA we're in right now with the Army, as well as potential with Air Force, we really need to be bringing that person on board. And as the council discusses, we are going through the budget. In fact, the council at our next meeting will have a proposal in front of the council to bring on that person now. Other professional services, IGZA, you can see, I mentioned earlier under revenues, there was a significant increase due to those intergovernmental support agreements for the revenues coming in. This represents the cost associated with that. So you'll see an increase here of $890,000. And that is to provide the payments out to the contractors who will be fulfilling that IGZA work at Fort Carson. So you can see there's a difference there. That difference is, for lack of a better term, our profit, right? It's the amount that we come out above, and that's the amount that we need to continue to administer those IGZAs. And so that's part of what we'll be funding that IGZA analyst that'll come before you. And by the way, that IGZA analyst, I'm referring to it as IGZA analyst. It's actually a different title. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it'll be far beyond IGZA. It'll be contract services for all of our departments and grant writing as well. In fact, I think it's is it a? Contracts and programs administrator. Thank you. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. I just, in my head, I've always thought of it as the IGZA analyst. All right. Other expenses, we have various other expenses that we had minor decreases to, because as we went through each of these, we asked the departments to really try to take a real hard look at each of their line items and decrease wherever they could, because the council asked us to do that so we can help provide some wiggle room for that merit increase for employees. Technology services, you'll see a decrease in there under other professional services of $15,000. Maintenance service contracts, and by the way, this is one that I know Lisa's mentioned before. I think we mentioned in the budget session last time. You know, our maintenance service contracts with all these different, all the different pieces of software we use are just something that have been out of control. And I'm so excited with the work that Lisa and her staff are doing right now to really try to get a handle on that, to really take a hard look, figure out the processes that we have to adopt new pieces of software, and see if we can't really rein it in. So she and her staff have been doing a tremendous job. But you can see in there we have some increases due to our help desk service catalog, OpenGov. That, by the way, OpenGov, that's that support platform. That's My Fountain, that people will do weed abatement. They'll put in weed complaints or pothole complaints, those sorts of things. That contract amount is going up. As you go down to that lower table, you can see under fleet there's some there's an additional module of a software program that they use to help manage their work order system. That's an increase on. But then they also have a significant decrease of $41,000 because of our Harris budget application. There was some duplication in the overall, I don't know how to say that, in the overall list of maintenance service contracts that got inserted into the budget. So we identified that and pulled that out. Police service maintenance contracts, a decrease there. Slight increase for the Axon body cameras that we're now doing with code enforcement. When we decided to move towards Axon body cameras, because people sometimes get concerned not just with police officers but with code enforcement as well, we wanted to make sure that we had a tool that was going to protect our officers, and so that was the Axon body cameras. You'll see a decrease in customer service, a decrease for various maintenance service contracts. That's $12,000. We have $5,700 for other departments. Travel and training, a slight increase in planning. They had some additional training requirements. Public works, you can see a small decrease for equipment. Police administration, one thing that we're seeing a lot of is fuel increases, so $5,800 for fuel. You'll see that in other areas as well. Fuel, that's just a cost. It's just been something that was really hard to project based on what's happened. Telephone decreases of $43,000. Other maintenance service contracts under police, $32,000 decrease, and miscellaneous expenses as well. So you'll see a number of decreases in there as well that all go into the overall big picture. Okay, so now flipping over to page 17. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. I think it's really exciting to see the increase in the Explorers program due to how popular that is. That's exciting, because I remember when it took a while to get going, so that's great to see it going so well. And then secondly, with the Senate bill that was passed last year to make it so that if you already have body cams, you have to release, they changed the deadline for us, and we had budgeted for the original deadline. How did that change in that bill potentially increase the budget you had for that this year, needing the IT help to get that all downloaded and tagged and everything?
Yes, it's had a significant impact. Ideally, in a perfect world, if we weren't, really struggling just to get the police officer manning, we would hire at least a part-time person to do the body-worn camera management and responsibilities that greatly increase for that. We've chose to do that internally based on the resources and civilian employees we have available. It's working now. It might come to a crossroads as we get into this new territory and this new uncharted territory where we're releasing these body-worn cameras. And they all have to be redacted, and the software is very complicated. And Lisa and her staff have been great with Greg Bowlby on making sure we have good software to do that, because those are no-fail missions. We have to do it. So short answer is we're trying to do the best we can right now. Where we could be at in a year from now, we might have to come back and cross that bridge again. There was about $4 million put in grants from the state to help police departments to meet this new law and the dateline. We did put in the extra officers. I submitted 7 cameras for us of extra officers that we either didn't have or the 3 we're bringing in to maybe get some grant money. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Anticipate though sometime in the near future, needing to hire at least another part-time IT person and potentially a full-time IT person to be trained to do just that?
Yeah, it's more of a police employee that sits in our front office or works with our evidence custodian or under our internal investigations department. So we're cross-sharing. We're trying to cross-train a lot of people right now with those resources, but we could, to meet that goal, and once that becomes very popular, need some additional help. That's a true statement. You're welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. So on that page 17, that top table, you can see decreases in some of the minor equipment under police. And as Councilmember Thompson mentioned, we also have the Explorers. That's been a great program, and they're seeing a real expansion to that, which is pretty neat. They've done just a tremendous job of that. You can also see firearm supplies. Number one, the costs have gone up, but also the need for those new officers coming on board. So those additional costs cover them. Fuel and oil as well, that's gone up. By the way, this is the patrol piece of police. I want to mention that. And then various other decreases relative to printing. As they got into their budget and they started going through every little line item, you'll see there were some that was a $200 decrease, a $1,000 decrease, but the overall net was $6,400 relative to lab testing, relative to printing, et cetera. So police investigations, they had minimal changes, $258. So you can see that was very, very minimal. Fire administration, as you go down through there, you'll see that they have some increases based on what we're actually experiencing on our utility costs, our electric, water, and sewer. Telephone costs were also increasing based on what we're seeing there. And then maintenance service contracts, and you'll see this on some of the different departments as well. We really have taken a hard look at the maintenance service contracts and by the way, are exploring some different options there, because we're seeing some increases in some areas. For example, the utilities building, that's a new building, so we're gonna see an increase there. In other areas, like right here, you'll see a slight decrease, well, a significant decrease. So I just wanna make sure I highlight that, because I know we're gonna be exploring some different things. We are exploring different things as far as do we continue, well, a couple things. Number one, most of our HVAC systems now, as we've been going through these performance service contracts, these performance contracts with, first one with Siemens and the ones that we're looking at right now with Midstate, most of our HVAC systems are pretty new now. And so we're looking at a real potential for the need for those service contracts to drop, and then we're also exploring maybe bringing someone in-house who can handle it in-house as well. So Todd and Craig have been working on that and really doing some good work, trying to nail that down. As we continue down through there, there's again various decreases in expenses for their office supplies, et cetera. Decreases in their uniform needs, some increases under medical. This is under fire emergency services for their medical supplies and their firefighting supplies. And so you'll see some increases there as well. Down to that bottom table again on page 17, as we continue with fire, surprisingly, their fuel and oil costs were actually decreasing a little bit, because I think we ended up projecting high, or maybe they're just using less, but it ends up being projected at less than what we actually had in there. So we're making some adjustments to that, and again, because of the same as with our buildings, with the newer vehicles, our vehicle maintenance costs are really dropping as well. Under fire prevention, no changes at all. Communication risk management, as we switch, we really have some changes relative to our, okay, wait a minute. Under radio maintenance, do you know under John, or maybe this would be a James question, decrease for transfer to FD and code compliance for advanced systems? That's not ringing a bell with me off the top of my head. Does that ring a bell with James?
Yeah, we transferred some of the radio maintenance over to, within the fire department and over to code compliance for some of the advances.
That's right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some shifting around in some of those areas as well. I was drawing a blank on that specific one. You'll see, again, various miscellaneous decreases in there, and again, communications accounts. As you go to streets, massive decrease on their vehicle costs because rather than just doing outright purchases, they're moving to the lease of a couple different single axle trucks, dump trucks. Yeah, large pieces of equipment. So rather than just paying that outright, they're proposing leases like we've started to do a couple years ago.
And we worked out a great lease agreement where we're paying about 1.3% in interest.
Under building maintenance, and I briefly had mentioned this before, we have some supply increases, again, because of our utility building. And then we have maintenance service contracts going up $39,000, again, because of, a big part of it's because of the utility building, but we're seeing some of those increases in the museum, city hall, HVAC systems, elevator systems, et cetera. So we just want to make sure, that's one of the reasons that we're really trying to focus on, are there some other things we can be doing to decrease that? And then building repairs, we've dropped that down a little bit. There just doesn't seem to be the need that we thought we would have. If you go over to page 18, this is the last section of highlights for the general fund. You'll have under neighborhood services, that's code enforcement largely. Uniform replacement, they needed some additional safety glasses and boots. Radio maintenance is going up. Our dues for the Pikes Peak Radio Network are going up, and our costs, our fees are associated with that. And then there's a decrease. There actually isn't a decrease in the 2022 contract. It's a decrease in the amount that we have in here because our amount was about $7,000 higher than it should have been. And so we caught that and we reduced that by $7,000. So I don't want to get anyone really excited that the Humane Society's like decreasing their contract all of a sudden. We just caught that we had, I think when we put that in there, we had projected it about 7,000 higher. And so then it was, and it got put in that way. So we're just pulling that back out. Parks, maintenance service contracts dropping, various minor items needing to be increased $1,100. Recreation, again, some minor things where they need some professional services, a little increase of $2,000. Traveling costs are decreasing. Under debt service, we've got a significant decrease of about $175,000. John, do you want to just briefly touch on that one?
Yeah, we had a number of leases for patrol vehicles, and the way we've redone some of and really with Chief's direction, we've kind of regrouped and extended some of the lengths of time that we're keeping some of the vehicles. So we're actually, with lower interest rates now, able to reduce the lease cost on an annual basis.
Thank you, John. And then that last item is transfers to the electric fund decrease based on updated cost sharing analysis of $45,000. Anything that you wanted to hit on that one, John?
Well, the cost sharing analysis is really just the way we do the allocations of cost between electric and water, et cetera. And so we look at that on a constant basis. And as we've looked at it, we see that there's a little bit less that general fund needs to transfer to electric fund. And we'll continue to look at that because there's a lot of money going back and forth between water, electric, ambulance, and general fund. I think one of the things I'd like to summarize is, Scott really worked with every department on, you've got to look for ways to cut your costs, and you can see that there are a lot of decreases, and many of them are small, but they add up to something big. And when you really look at the large increases, they have to do with the great IGSA opportunity that John Trilch has brought to us, the expense to match that revenue, and the FURA expenses for their share of the sales taxes, because sales tax revenue has really gone up. So, those together comprise approximately 1.4 million of the 1.6 million increases, including the merit increases and the increase personnel for public safety and parks, et cetera. So, we really thank the departments for making all those little decreases that added up. They really look closely at their line items. So
Thanks for
hopefully that's
highlighting that,
obvious.
John. Appreciate it. Now, if you would, change pages, unless there's any questions at this point, to page 19. That's that last page of the general fund section. And that's the section that has the table that lays out the general fund fund balance and reserve percentages. This is something that we always try to talk about. So I'm not going to go through this entire thing, but I just want to summarize it by saying this. When we look at our fund balance, right, at the end of the year, what we're looking at is portions of our, almost what you might think of as a savings account. And some of that savings account is committed. Some of it's restricted, and there's a difference there. Restricted might be development funds that are specifically collected. For example, if we had a street impact fee that were specifically collected for streets, they're going to really be restricted for streets. If it was a park fee that was collected from developers specifically for parks, those are going to be restricted, legally restricted. There are others that are committed. So they might not be legally restricted, but we really have committed them to certain things. And I always think of the public safety sales tax increment. That's something that the city council created a number of years ago, a quarter cent of all new sales taxes that come in can get set aside for this kind of capital needs for police and fire. So we can, purchase buildings with it, equipment, whatever. That's something that's committed, but really the council could change that commitment at any time. But we sort of act as if it's restricted, for those specific purposes, until the council tells us otherwise. So then we have this unassigned piece of that the council can look at, and that really, as we look at our policy around the amount of fund balance that we want to keep, right? That's that unrestricted, unassigned piece. That was the council goal of 20%. And so right now, you'll see on that far right column at the very bottom, you'll see a grand total, and this is a projected number. So as we go throughout the rest of 2021, and we spend less, and that typically is what happens throughout the budget year. You never spend really right to the dollar that you have budgeted. We typically spend less and sometimes quite a bit less. You'll see that we're projecting about a 21.9% balance, 21.8% balance, which is about a $463,000 amount. If the council wanted to take a look at that 1.9% that's over the 20, that's the number that sometimes we talk about, hey, if the council wants to use that for parks or roads or those sorts of things. So if you keep that number, and this, by the way, that number is in the budget summary as well, the budget message at the very beginning. So if you keep that number in your head of 463,000, that's a number that's above and beyond the council's goal of wanting to have at least 20%. That's really a 3% tabor and the 17%, but a grand total of about 20%. So I just want you to keep that in mind. I know we have a lot of different needs, but I want to specifically bring your attention to one very specific need, because this is an opportunity that really doesn't come up a whole lot. And I'm probably going to have Todd talk to it because he knows the details far more than I do. But essentially, we have an opportunity to complete the rest of Link, moving south from where it had been completed this last year with that massive project. And a potential for us to receive some significant grant funding that can help us really pay for the rest of that as well. We're looking at an overall grant match of 1.6 that we would need to have over the next several years to meet that match. But that's to get us a grand total project of what, about $9 million project? 9.6. So
Profit would be $8 million in grant.
So it sounds like a lot, but at the same time, you don't want to walk away from a grant that's that huge to complete a major project. So the sort of immediate need would be to do the engineering work on that, and that engineering work would happen throughout 2022, and you're looking at about $350,000 for that. Anything else you want to plug in on that piece? I wanted to at least hit on that because, a lot of times we really try to focus those additional dollars on one-time expenditures, because you just don't know what's going to happen next. And as John's mentioned before, as we continue to move forward, and if those sales taxes come in higher than we're anticipating, property taxes, there's potential for a tabor refund as well. So we just want to be a little bit sensitive to that. You don't want to necessarily be using that excess amount for ongoing expenditures when you don't know what's going to be happening the following year. So I just want to throw that out as potential. There's potentials for, street maintenance, park equipment. And, we've also talked about personnel needs as well. I know Chief Heber sent out something a couple days ago around the Beacon unit and the needs for something like that as well. So there's always different needs. I know, council, you guys have your own probably priorities that you'd like to focus on or really like to consider. I just wanted to throw those out as a few different ideas to sort of mull a little bit as you think about that. So the number 463, 500,000, that's about where we'll be. And again, that could likely change a little bit throughout the rest of the year. John, anything you wanted to add to that discussion? Any questions around this reserve piece? I really wanted to just try to simplify it down to that number and try to make that easy for you. Okay. Any questions at all or comments about the general fund?
Mr. Mayor? Go ahead. Question for Scott and John. The 28 million roughly in the budget, does that include the ARPA funds? And is that funds, should that be in the general fund? Should that be a separate fund? I don't know the accounting well enough. I'm just trying to make sure I capture the total amount of what we're gonna be spending. Thank you.
Yeah, we have not included the ARPA funds in the budget, other than putting them in here as restricted per ARPA in the reserve calculation, just because we've received it, but we have not included it in the budget because those expenditures that have been appropriated for 2021 from the first 3.5 million that we received will be spent in 2021 out of that. We have not included anything in the budget as far as expenses for the amount that is remaining or the amount that we will be receiving next year. But once we do receive that money and once we've determined that, maybe it should be spent in a certain area, we'll come to council with a supplemental and request that that money then be spent. But it's only spent in accordance with the way it's restricted by the group that we get the funds from, by the federal government.
Right now, we're saying we're gonna be spending have a budget of about 28 million, but it could be another 3.6 or whatever the ARPA money that comes in for 2022. Is that correct?
It could, and it looks like there's a good chance that a large portion of that could be transferred to the water fund to complete a large water infrastructure project.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Gordy, I'm really glad you asked that question. That's a great point that I wanted to make sure I mentioned as well. It's a net zero, right? The expenses come in, have to match the revenue. The revenues coming in have to match the expenses going out. But because there is such a moving target, and we're not sure, for example, with the amount for water, is it going to be expended in 2022? Portions of it in 2022 and 2023, et cetera, that we have to play that a little bit by ear, knowing when we account for the revenues as well as when we account for the
Yeah,
expenditure.
I think we have to identify it by the end of 2023 and have it all spent by the end of 2024. Am I right on that?
I think it's 2026 that we have it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have some time. Okay, so that gets us through the general fund, and then at the next section, John, unless you anticipate anything different, are we ready to move to water, utilities, and hand this over to Dan?
Ready to hand it over to Dan.
Okay, I guess I could have looked at that agenda and see that. Thank you.
Can I have the microphone, please? You can have the microphone. Thank you very much. I'll address the water fund first. I just want to make a statement that, at least from my perspective on the water fund, we don't have any what I would consider significant changes. So I'm going to take kind of a high-level overview, but if there are some items in there that you have questions about, please ask me. The biggest influence on our water revenues, at least right now, is increase in consumption. Over the past 7 years, we've seen an increase in consumption on the average of just under 1%. That fluctuates on a yearly basis due to primarily weather conditions, but but on an average over the last 7 years, we've seen just under a 1% increase in consumption. We do not have any rate changes in 21 or 22. Our most recent rate change was at the beginning of the year 2020. And as we go through our master planning process, we will be looking at revenues and expenditures and see if there's a need to do any further analysis. But at this point in time, we don't have any anticipated rate changes or recommendations for rate changes. The changes you do see for 2022 in revenues, when we were going through the budgets, we realized that there were certain fees that were being 100% credited to the electric fund, when in fact they should have been spread and allocated between water and electric. And so what you see there in the change in water revenues is a result of that. Moving over to the expenditures, one of the things that I did soon after I got here, 22. We're moving from 21 to 22. One of the things that I did when I first got here was start to look at our financial position. Came to the realization pretty early on that in 2020 we were on target to spend more, have more expenses than our revenues were. So I sent out a directive to all employees that had expenditure authority in the water fund to limit expenditures to only those that were absolutely necessary to continue to provide service to our customers and meet our water quality standards. And so we've continued that same approach into 2021 and 2022. And so as far as the expenditures go, the primary increase in expenditures is associated with salaries and benefits. But you can also see as you flip over to page 23 that there were a lot of reductions in planned expenditures. The belt tightening in 2020 and carrying that forward into 2021 and 2022 has enabled us to show an increase in our net water fund position from in 2020 and carrying that forward into 2021 and 2022.
That's on page 24.
So the water fund, like I say, we're really no significant changes from what we had planned and put in our budget request a year ago. Any questions on the water fund before we move forward to the electric fund? Moving on to the electric fund. That would be section 4. And actually, we're going to start on page 26 with the electric revenue. We'll say that we do have a significant change in the revenue projections. Not a significant change. I think we need to make sure that that's a change in the projections, not necessarily a change in the actual revenues. When I did the revenue projections a year ago, the base that I used, or the revenue data that I used for that projection, was past year's actuals, and the financial information that I used did not include what's called our electric cost adjustment. And in past years, the electric cost adjustment is basically a way to either collect additional revenues associated with our purchase power, and all of our rates have a base in there. And then if our actual costs for purchasing power are greater than that base, then we collect that through the electric cost adjustment. If our actual costs are less than the base, then we return that difference to our customers through the electric cost adjustment. And historically, our electric cost adjustment has been a negative number, so that we've been returning that to our customers. And in fact, in the past 2 or 3 years, it's been to the tune of over $1 million a year. And so that information, or that was not included in the revenue data that I use to make the projections. And that is why the projections for revenues are significantly less than what we presented a year ago at this time. This does not impact planned spending, and it basically reduces the projected fund balance on paper. When we get back to the electric fund net position, you will see that even with the reduced projection in revenues, our expenditures are still less than the revenues, and therefore our net position continues to go in a positive direction. So moving on to the expense overview, we have some the one significant or somewhat significant change was a number in capital outlay. We made some reductions in a variety of areas, but there were 3 things in the capital outlay that did not make it into the budget a year ago that we're proposing to add back in, and that's just about $250,000 for overhead line upgrades, $300,000 for underground upgrades, and then we would like to put in $100,000 for any as-needed system improvements that we may not know about at this time, but are more likely to occur. And that's in the expense overview on pages 28 and 29. But like I say, is for the most part, with the exception of that particular item and the salaries and benefits, you'll see that there are many reductions that are being made as part of our conservative spending approach. Moving on now just to the electric fund net position. Even as you can see, even with reduced revenue projections, we still have a net or an increase in our net position every year, including this year and next year. We have. I will note that on the rates in 2020, at the end of 2020, the council approved a rate study and a resolution that increased the rates 4% in 2021, and it also includes a 4% rate increase in 2022. It included an adjustment to the electric cost adjustment, so that to kind of true that up, so that we don't have so that our actual costs are really close to what we have in our base rates. The rate study indicated that we anticipated that we would have the need for a 4% annual increase over a 5-year period. And the primary driving factor for that was a second interconnection point and a transmission extension from that second interconnection point to the recently completed Jimmy Camp Creek substation. Within the last 6 months, there was an announcement by the regional transmission organization, Southwest Power Pool, that they are going to expand westward. With that is fantastic news for us. It enables us to work with a third-party transmission company. The third-party transmission company, if this all goes through, they will upfront the cost of the transmission interconnection point and the transmission, and it will become part of the regional transmission system. Our ratepayers will only pay the annual cost associated with that as part of our transmission costs, and we will not have to upfront the cost of that. And it will likely, if the expansion occurs as planned, it is likely to negate the need for the last 3 years of the proposed rate increases. So that was very, very good news. Yeah. So that's concludes the electric fund, and be happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
Do we have any questions on water and electric?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
While I'm dialing up the ambulance fund, I'd like Chief Maxon to talk about some really good news regarding Medicaid reimbursement program and how we've been able to move some EMTs over to ambulance fund to free up a little bit more money in the general fund, and how the Medicaid reimbursement program covers that.
All right, good evening. So we have, by September 30th, 620,000 and I think it's $745 coming in into the ambulance fund from a Medicaid reimbursement. And that's to reimburse us with the difference between the cost of our transports versus what Medicaid reimburses us. So it's just helping us recover what our actual costs are. So that's due into the city before September the 30th.
That revenue is not in the budget for 2021, and it is not yet in the budget for 2022. We believe the program will continue, so we'll have some discussions on adding that. I have put a note in the net position when we get to that. And do you want to talk a little bit about how that money coming in for 2021 will probably continue in future years, and that's covering the cost of which new personnel?
So those funds coming in would cover the cost of the EMT and the 2 paramedics that were part of the last strategic plan by the city, and we'll cover the cost for that. And then also it's going to help us with some police officers as well. And I'll also add that we're already working on some Medicare, which may be just as much. That won't be till 2022, but we are already working on that project as well. So hopefully that comes to fruition.
So you can see, looking at the proposed budget, at this point, it looks like a negative 452, because we have not included that 620,000. And we will be bringing that forward in the next budget supplemental as far as the revenue and the expenses. So those numbers will change immediately. And as far as the salaries and benefits, these are the revisions. You can see the 581,000, which is merit, and the movement of the 3 personnel, an increase based on medical supplies, and then a number of decreases that Chief Maxon has identified, and then a change in the cost allocations because of the additional personnel, et cetera. So when we look at the three-year net position, adding in down here the 624.78 for the unbudgeted Medicaid reimbursement, when that's included in the next supplemental request, which will be coming to you in just 2 weeks from tonight, that additional revenue is anticipated, and we'll be adding that in.
And I'll also add, with our ambulance fund, we've also changed ambulance billing companies in March, and we're trying to really just update our business model there. And in the long run, hopefully, we're going to be just hardly in the general fund at all when it comes to the ambulance fund.
You can see that the transfers, which is the second to last line there, has decreased from 420,000 in 2020 to 300,000. And yeah, if we continue to decrease, that's
What you're saying
good.
is we're going from a negative to a positive?
Yes.
Did you add that?
Yep.
We are. Yes, sir.
And what does that mean as far as adding in that? Are we gonna have that 3rd ambulance running all the time?
So with those 3 new positions, we will be able to still cross-staff it, but we don't have quite enough. We would still need 3 more positions to staff it all the time.
Thank you.
Any questions on the ambulance fund? Any other questions? Sorry, Sam.
Should have went last.
That is great news. Chief, while I have you up here, let's look at the volunteer fire fund. Anything you want to say as far as an overview? There were just some minor changes here in uniform replacement, where you're able to find a $10,000 decrease, and, a couple other expenses and a little bit of increase where you realized, year-to-date experience, we really need to get that up. So anything you wanted to say about volunteer fire fund?
So we stopped this year bringing new volunteer firefighters into the department just to see how that goes. We have 10 of them still. We're strongly supporting those folks. But what we've experienced, like I shared with you all before, was folks coming in, getting their certifications, and they'll even pull a single shift, and they're gone. And we invested just thousands on thousands of dollars, and so we really don't like that much. And so we're going to try and see how this goes. I started as a volunteer firefighter myself, and I think it's a very valuable program. But the majority of our folks still even live in Fountain in that program, and so, like I said, they're getting their certifications and they bail on us.
I think there was a time and a place for that.
Right.
And we're no longer small enough that we need that. And, yeah, I was just thinking about that, and to lose the need, I guess, is a good thing maybe, in the need to, we need those extra folks, but, yeah, that's a kind of a big step.
And the 10 we have are fairly solid and doing a great job pulling shifts. We'll see how that goes, and we could end up adding more in the future, but this year we haven't, and I don't anticipate doing so in 2022. So with the volunteer fire fund, we reduce things, and we're not going to need it, quite as much.
Right, because we pay for their equipment too, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
So we actually all started a regional fire academy, which you're probably referring to. And this year we still offer at our facilities and our instructors, just so we don't leave them high and dry. And they actually graduated recently. Actually, it was this last Saturday that they graduated. So we're still involved in that process if they need us to be.
So as you can see, we've actually increased the revenue less expenses based on the changes that Chief has suggested. And we do have a strong ending balance in the fund balance of the volunteer fire fund that continues to increase.
And I'll add that when we do the wildland deployments, that money goes into here. So that's where actually 100% of the revenue going in here is coming from the wildland funds that we get when we go out to other jurisdictions for fires. And this year we'll probably bring in $40,000 from our deployments to help other folks.
So with that, I'd like to go into the transportation and miscellaneous funds, starting with the transportation fund. I'd like to ask Todd Evans to just talk a little bit about what's going on with the three funds, and then I'll go through some of the details.
Great. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. We'll start on page 37 with the transportation sales tax, or as we all know it, the Moving Fountain Forward program. As everyone can see, and as everyone in here is very familiar with those projects that we've got outstanding, just to give you a quick brief, we have movement on 3 of those. It's never as fast as we'd like to see. Brandy did brief me this week that we did receive comments back from the railroad in terms of the Indiana Crossing project. I reacted the same way, Tamara. So at least it's back in our court for a short time, and we take care of those comments and get it back to them. That is kind of the priority project that we have, but we're also getting our engineering started and going on the Ohio and Jimmy Camp intersection. That is still a span wire intersection planned for that, not a roundabout. So we don't have to send those calls to Lojinos as well. And also our Carson Boulevard, Brandy's working with CDOT on getting a decent design for that. It hasn't changed from what we've all talked about, that green T with, we hope, a light. But to be able to do that realistically, we're going to have to get some grant funding and some help from CDOT to be able to put in any type of a lighted intersection down there. We're not going to have the money in this line to be able to do that nice of an intersection on 85, 87. They are open to that, and she does have engineers that are working with her and attempting to find some money through CDOT. So again, that would be a positive impact on those folks with Southmore closed. So that is a priority, and we're going to keep pushing forward with that. So our goal is to at least this year get Ohio and Jimmy Camp Creek intersection engineering finished and get that going. That is another intersection that we can work on that intersection and complete that intersection during school. So our hands aren't tied because of the type of intersection that we're building there. So we want to move that as forward as quickly as we can. So that's kind of the update on what's going on with the capital piece of moving Fountain forward, which we all know has expired. So that account is not going to grow. We've got to deal with what we've got in that account right now. So if we turn the page to page 38, we'll transition over where it says transportation fund, both that and the blue box below. That goes into our transit system. As Rosa gave a quick debrief at a council ago, I think it was, or two, the increase that we did on that salary line had an immediate effect, and within a couple weeks, we're now fully staffed with our drivers in the transit system, and that's going very well at this point. We'll knock on wood, but at this point, that had an immediate positive impact. So as you can see on the expenses side, or we'll say the revenue side, as John mentioned, it has a positive increase in accordance with the trend of the 3% as it has on the other areas of revenue. So we are seeing more coming into this fund. It is restricted to just our transit, so you can see the small changes that we did. Both one decrease and the others increases, one being the lease as we're getting some new buses again, and that lease program is working very, very well. As soon as those reach any type of a maximum where our fleet services believe we need to rotate those out, we do, and replace them with new leased buses. So as we move over to the matrix on page 39, you can see this fund is in a good place. We've got over $2 million in this ending fund balance, as you see, moving into 2022. We will start to see an impact to that as we start doing our new and replacement to our structures for our bus stops. You probably saw in the weekly update that the pad got completed over at Jimmy Camp and Link. They're still working on others. So you're going to see, our plan to do is about 5 of those a year, and those are expensive. They're $20,000 to $25,000 per structure. So we'll see that moving forward. And again, having that in that is nice because we could make that immediate adjustment without an impact to that ending fund balance like you did with those increases for those bus drivers, which really helps the quality of that. You will see, we'll be in front of you in the next couple of council sections. We are going to have a change in our dispatch program. So we've got an assessment that's been completed for you on that, and we'll bring that forward to you as well. That actually probably is going to have a net negative impact on this budget process as well. So I'll be bringing that information to you in the next couple of council sessions. So moving down to the bottom of page 39, we've had the same positive effect in our street resurfacing restricted fund as more is coming into that line item, as you can see. And we've explained it before, but I just want to remind everyone, Bob stays in constant contact with Shauna as the year goes on. They try to project what the ending balance on that will be, but they work very closely with John and Shauna, and we predict, we have a constant list going that we work on with our roadway focus group, so we can throw streets on that today if we need to. We've already got them prioritized and know what we need to work on. So as that increases, we enjoy it. Bob has to get those bids out pretty early in the year to get them scheduled. But the best that we can do is spend that, and we always try to keep a couple of $100,000, as you can see, in that account as kind of a buffer. On some years, we've brought that down to 100,000 on different needs, but we like to keep that in that fund just in case. We had the situation, what's it been, 5 years, Scott, I think, where that one rainstorm took out an entire street up in Country Club Heights. Well, we needed to get in there and do some resurfacing real quick on those, so we're able to use those type of funds for resurfacing.
And based on some of those increases from the sales tax, we're able to budget $600,000 for street resurfacing contracts next year.
Yeah, so that's always great news. So moving over to page 40, you can see that that final resurfacing funds, the increase, and then that fund balance that we keep below. On page 41, you can see on here, if you look at the 2021 amended budget, you can see that we're right at $1 million with that capital. Now, again, that capital has sunset, so we're not increasing that. The reason that you don't see that moved over into the budget is every year we have to budget that we are going to spend that in that year, because we have to be poised and ready when we finally get that approval through the railroad to start on that Indiana crossing. So you'll see that, us carry that over. John will do that towards the end of the year. He will carry that over to next year, and we'll have that budgeted again for 2022, ready to go when we get the final approval. So that's what we're holding that and ready for that now. What makes me nervous about that is the increase in construction costs that we're seeing every year. So every year that we're delayed, we're ready to go. We've got the joint venture monies with Challenger sitting there ready to go. We've got the grant funding sitting there ready to go that we do need to spend. But every year that we're being delayed by the railroad, the cost of that project is going up.
Didn't we do some stuff here a while back when we did this before that you were gonna check and see if we spending some money on somebody doing a street study for us?
The pavement management system, yeah, that was approved tonight in the consent agenda. Now, one thing that was kind of talked about during our strategic planning was, and I appreciate that question, Sam, was a lot of the topics that came up during that were looking at and I'm trying to remember the terminology that we used, the traffic counts and the traffic flows. So one thing that we talked about with that pavement management system, folks, is they have the ability to do specific traffic counts when they go out and they do the pavement management study itself, which is going to include going through. We're going to be able to see depths of our asphalt. They're going to bore. They have other technology that they can use. The question for us is, do we want to spend that $12,000 to get those traffic counts? The positive side of that is those counts can be utilized for things if we go back in front of the public. They can be utilized to justify different things as we move forward. It's much cheaper at a $12,000 because we're already spending $200,000 on the pavement management system itself. On the other side of that token, we all know that our traffic counts are bad. Well, I don't need any study or anybody to tell us, and nor do you, because I have Gabe, who gives me constant feedback and updates on where the traffic flow is bad and when it's going on. So that's kind of a question that we want to throw out to you. Is that something we want to include? Is that something we want to spend that additional monies on to have those scientific numbers in front of us, or do we not? That's kind of a decision for the council. We have the ability. Do we believe that money is worth those numbers?
I think if it's gonna help us get something in the end,
Give us the evidence that we need to try to sell this in the future.
To prove to folks that it's really as bad as we say it is?
Not black and white numbers then.
Okay, sure, we can do that.
But Kimberly uses those numbers for EDC when she's trying to entice, businesses to come look at us.
That's a good point.
They do
Yeah.
look at traffic counts on where they want to consider putting things. And if we're fighting so hard to try to get a grocery store down here at this end of town, they need to see those traffic counts where there is the people living, constantly going up and down this area
Sure.
to do it, so.
Now, remember, I don't want to make sure we don't overpromise and underdeliver. Those counts won't be on 85, 87, because that's not a part of this study.
I understand that, but
Just our roads.
I know,
Yeah.
but they still, if you get a traffic count on Ohio or
Sure.
Illinois or Jimmy
Sure.
Camp or something like that, it's gonna show the
Absolutely.
people going up and down the roads.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do a change order, and we'll bring that back in front of you. It'll probably just be on consent. But we'll get the scope of that, and we'll put that, a change order together, and bring that back to you. Okay? But that was a good question, Sam. Thank you.
Any other?
Oh, hey, there's the idea. There's our 12,000 right there. Be wary. That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. Oh, all right. Now, I don't negotiate on thirds. We don't function that way.
Do I hear a fourth? Do I hear a fifth?
And another high note on the resurfacing of the streets, I've been out and about in the, community, those streets.
Good.
They're even saying my street is better than your street, so
Good, 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 good.
They're complaining, but they are saying that they are happy to see those streets being resurfaced.
Good, good. And I can tell you with the way we're doing it, and that we're making sure through the roadway focus group that each zone gets equal attention every year. We're not hearing the complaints that we used to get that, why are you spending all your money in X area and we're not seeing anything? So I think that's a big positive too.
There's some people in Southport that are really,
Yeah, yeah.
My neighborhood is happy, but there is a downside to that really nice street. The traffic speed is way down.
100%. Yeah, yeah. When I talk to folks in Cumberland Green and they talk about those, the manhole covers that kind of protrude from the thing. And they talk about that, I said, do you realize how many of those are speed bumps that are requested all over the city? They're unofficial, but they work to keep the speed slow.
Very effective.
Yeah, we smooth that out and people will be motoring up and down that thing, so, yeah, yeah. John, anything that I didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
No, I think you've got it all. Any other questions on the transportation sales tax funds? Okay, I'm going to move on to the miscellaneous funds, and this will be really brief. These are all of the other funds that we have not yet discussed. As soon as I find them here. They're right near the top. Okay, so these are all of the other funds: Conservation Trust, Heritage Maintenance District, GID 1 and 2, Insurance, Drainage, and Volunteer Fire Pension. And as you can see, in the revenue area, we have about a $50,000 increase. All of that has to do with property tax increases. So the only revisions that we have are to these funds are increased in revenues due to property taxes, the only revisions for revenue. And that's all explained in that next table there at the bottom of page 44. We go to the expense overview. The only increase we have is the $40,000 in the insurance fund out of the wellness program. That's for firefighter physicals that we, and Chief feels would really be important. So we're adding that in as expense, and that is the only revision to the expenses in any of these funds. You can see that the two GIDs are not represented here. That's because we have not budgeted any expenses out of those two funds. So when we go down to the last page there, 46, I did a fund balance projection for all of the funds, the miscellaneous funds, and you can see there that we have a positive input into each of the funds, and the fund balance for 12/31/2022 will be almost 7.5 million for those funds. Are there any questions on the miscellaneous funds? You can see with Conservation Trust, very little has been budgeted, so that's with the revenue that we get every year. I'm sure we're going to have some good money to put towards some great projects that I know Sylvia will come up with. So there's no questions on that. I'd like to open it up for any questions that council has for staff.
We have a system called Review Snap, which is our performance evaluation system. Every employee gets scored on a number of different factors, number of different elements on a 1 to 3 scale. 2 out of that 1 to 3 scale being meets expectations. And so 1 being does not meet expectations, 3 being exceeds expectations. If an employee averages meet expectations across the board, then they receive a 3% merit increase. If they don't, if they're, let's say they're 1.5 or whatever, we give them a certain amount of time to correct the areas that they were below, do a reevaluation, and if they get to the 2 at least, then they get that merit increase as well. Yep.
Sure, the next steps, we had a budget calendar that we sent to all of you a couple months back, and we had indicated that we would have a budget work session on this day, and that our public hearing for the first reading will be October 12th, and 2 weeks after that, the second reading and hopefully approval. So I think some of the big additions will be the revenue for the ambulance fund that we'll be bringing to you in 2 weeks, and carrying over into 2022. There might be some minor revisions to property tax revenue once we get the mill levy certifications. Outside of that, I don't know of any other changes that we would be making between this and the first reading. They would all be revenue enhancements.
So I just want to thank Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting us go through this process and kind of walk you through some of the different changes. Appreciate it. It has been, I mean, we try to keep this fairly simple and just focus on the changes, but it's been a tremendous amount of work by all the different department heads and really trying to really hone down on their budget. So I just want to thank them all as well, as John thanked them earlier. So with that, Mr. Mayor, back to you.
I guess the only thing I really hope is that strategic plan really does help simplify for you all, because I know you guys spend a ton of time on it, but in just doing that. So John, I know I give you a hard time about it, but I think we're in a really good spot, to be able to do a budget work session. Granted, it's our middle of the cycle, but and it's all, I like this program too, how it's everything just laid out very specifically. So I appreciate everything that you guys do, and it's not easy work, and hard stuff to make sure we're on top of, and making sure everything's taken care of. So I appreciate that.
Sure, and I can tell you that as we work through this, and I know Lisa and Lexi did a lot of work over this past weekend in making things look a little bit neater, and we found some things that even the OpenGov representative didn't know we could do. And so this is going to continue to be more and more readable and easier to follow. I know the first time we did this with you last year, it didn't go real well. This digitized budget book continues to get better. When I listened in on the strategic planning session on September 1st, and I thought back on what we had already included in the budget, it seemed like everything already is in line. Where, when we had the discussion about finance and fiscal responsibility, focusing on Tabor, but IGSA particularly. I mean, IGSA is really a revenue that is Tabor exempt that really helps us with finding additional monies that we can spend on behalf of the taxpayers. We talked about public safety, we talked about transportation, and all of those things have been, you can tell, have been a focus on the revisions. So I think we're getting more and more in sync with what we want to do strategically and what we're doing with our budget.
Go ahead.
I would like to talk a little bit more, visiting Heber's idea about a second beacon officer. The reports that we're seeing, I believe our community is crying out for this kind of intervention, finding a way to keep people out of jail if, not necessary, deal with people that are in a behavioral health crisis, rather than using our jails as a hospital for people that need assistance. The reports we've seen, to me, are astounding, the amount of need we're meeting. I know I asked you for some numbers on what you think the savings in terms of we're not being charged for taking people to jail, 2 officers and EMTs or whatever it takes to transport someone,
It's true.
I mean, that's a significant savings to me. That savings, even if we be multiplied into helping pay for the potential second beacon officer, because I think there is a gap. We saw it when only the county had beacon officers. The teams can't work 7 days a week. And so, Colorado, they can't be in Colorado Springs, can't be county everywhere at the same time. So the more we can decrease those services that we have to use the hospital room or the jail to take care of a situation where someone really is just needing assistance for maybe talking through a crisis for a couple hours or getting a direct, direct referral or direct, into the mental health,
Yeah.
ward. Referral. But they don't have to go, we don't have to transport them. They don't have to go sit in the hospital for X number of hours until they have time to evaluate them with whatever emergencies, and they finally might be half a day before they get to the services they need. The more direct intervention they can have, the better. So could you kind of share those numbers that you put together?
Sure. Thank you. So we tried to do a deep dive into this. Some of the stats, and I won't read them all because I sent them to everybody. But for the general public, we responded in 2 months. So we were able just to get her up and running in July through certification or training and make sure our cop was trained in CIT training. And then they rode with the beacon teams in the county to make sure we were doing things the same way and learning the best, the best practices. So total 911 calls, 115, follow-ups, phone calls, emails, and business was 76. So it's a full service follow-up to make sure the help is spent. This is really significant, 93 hours and 17 minutes that's saved on patrol time. So that gets the police officers assigned to multiple shifts back out serving the community, either doing speed enforcement, responding to calls, keeping our call-up responses active. Involuntary holds, 10, where we sent people to a mental health facility because they were in a crisis for the types of calls such as harassment, Schedule II narcotics, criminal trespassing, menacing, disorderly conduct, tampering, assault, underage drinking, and false imprisonment. Those were all call types that nobody went to jail on because the Beacon team responded to those calls and resolved the situation in a peaceful manner. So it resulted in 0 uses of force, 0 people going to jail. This is really at the cutting edge of mental health and policing in America in 2021 going forward. We were very fortunate to, with your support, bring the first Beacon on. And I would just tell you on behalf of the, I think really community, as we've sent the updates, and really the police officers that don't have a Beacon on their shift, they see the need, they see the value for it, they see the immediate response and huge impact it's made. And that's only going to grow as the mental health crisis, I think, in all communities in our country continues to expand and go in different directions. That is nobody's fault here at the table. It's just the world we live in. So we did put a request together to consider with the monies that are available. And I know how tight the budget is, but I look at the cost of saving a life and the 115 calls and the 93 hours. Those 93 hours sent returned 67 patrol officers back into the community. When we looked at the cost that I did up for Sharon, it's somewhere between, of an annual basis of about $95,000, we return back into the community somewhere between $35,000 on a low end and $45,000 on a high end of police assets that stayed in the community. So from an economy of force perspective, it is very, very valuable. It certainly is paying for a third, half the way. It will take us 6 months to hire and train a Beacon like we did it the last time. So my net cost that I think would be projected in the budget for 2022 would be about $50,000. We'd probably get that person through the process, get them onboarded like last year, somewhere between June or July. And I think there would be a cost savings of about $15,000 out of the 50 that we would keep the patrol officers here. The impact to the community, I think, is immeasurable. I don't think you can measure those lives and the impact. We want to expand it. We want to keep going on it. If we can all find a way to afford that in a very tight budget, and I wouldn't put this above taking care of the current employees we have here, but I think that would be money very well spent. So thank you. If we could consider that request, we were very excited for it. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I would obviously support putting that forward. I hope other people would too, and I hope people really think seriously about
Thank
it. I think the benefit to our community is fantastic, and, you know, we always say you can't put a price on a life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when it's budget, you are forced into that position, and I think this is one session, and I know there's a lot of needs. I know we need the more firemen. I do, but I think this assists them too, maybe takes their stress level down where they're not in situations where they're not trained for.
And
They're
it
not
certainly does an economy of force on the fire department too, because we're not doing an M1 hold, strapping them to an ambulance where the paramedics are fighting with them. We're injecting them with some sort of drug to control the behavior. So, you know, we did measure the cost, the firefighters. I know there's a cost associated with that. They're not running on the calls, we're not running on the calls. And we're really just solving, you know, problem solving at a very high level with very mature cops, with a very specialized person that has absolutely been outstanding. And it's saving people in our community, and it saves both the police and fire from being on those calls. So maintenance, gas, all those things are immeasurable. I think on this thing, for me, the juice is absolutely worth the squeeze. It's something Scott and I always talk about.
So if the council wants, does the council want us to put together a formalized proposal so we can actually put all that data together? And yeah, we'll vet the data, right? We'll vet the real costs and the real savings, and okay, we can do that.
Thank you.